Hi, everybody. Robert Phoenix here with the Sunday Night Astro Livestream. And just on the other side of this screen is you-know-who. He's always close by, and his name is Jasper, the Astro Cat. You may see some strange things happen with the screen. That's Jasper making his presence felt. He knew it was showtime, and he kept bugging me, kept meowing. He was, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's do this, let's do this. And he is clearly in show mode, ready to channel the wonders and marvels of the celestial spheres. Let me see who's around. Check you guys out. Check in with the old chat process. We've got the cat room and the chat room. Hello, there's Jennifer. Hi, Shari. Hello, June, Judy, Cato, Shauna, JW. What's happening, people? I've got a really interesting show tonight. Yes, Chiron moved into Aries. Good call, June. Yeah, Jasper. They're talking about you, man. They're talking about you. He's very happy that that's happening. Hey, what's going on, Alexis? There's Joan. Hi, Joan S. How are you? And we're just going to wait for some people to kind of congregate. Let the congregation arrive. So let me give you a brief outline of the show, and I'll tell you an anecdote from my past. Oh, you see who that is? Yeah, there he is. Why don't you come over here and say hi to everybody? Come over here and say hi to everybody. Come on. You know you want to say hi. Come on. Yep, here he is, the man. Yeah. Jasper, should I get a little close up on you? Should we get a little close up on you? You want to say hi to everybody? Mr. Big Head. Look at the size of that head. I mean, he really does have a big head. You know? You do. You got a big head. They say it's good for television, though, to have a big head. All right. I will lovingly sort of acknowledge Jasper and at the same time try to do the show. And Rosie, for all of you Rosie fans, she's not far by. Rosie is more of a horizontal cat. Jasper is more of a vertical cat. Hi, Ani, how are you? So while everybody is kind of showing up here, I'll tell you guys a funny story from my past. So this is around 1988, and I was living in Jasper. What is your sign? Let's see. So we picked Jasper up, I think, in May of 2000 and it was May of 2009, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm assuming Jasper is probably an Aries. He's either an Aries or he's a late Pisces. One of the two. I think Jasper's an Aries. That's what I think. And I think Rosie might be a Pisces. I think Jasper's an Aries. He seems like an Aries, doesn't he? He's like, you know, he's a pioneer cat, Jasper. What's the size of that head? Okay, I think you're done. I think you're done. Let's get down. Come on. He'll be back. I know him. He'll be back. Yes, I know. Yes. Yeah. Look at the size of this beast. Look at the size of him. You want to say hi to everybody? Say good night. Say good night. Yeah, you say good night. Okay. No doubt he'll be back. No, Taurus or Aries. I think he's an Aries. I think Jasper's an Aries. Rosie might be the Taurus. Here he comes. He's ready to make his ascent. Stay down there. Stay down there. Okay, I'm going to share with you a story. Happened to me back in 1988. As we get ready for tonight's game, is Jasper arrogant? He doesn't take no for an answer. That's the Aries in Jasper. See, I just like, you know, say, hey, I'll see you later, right? He'll be right back up here. That's why I think he's an Aries. He just, although he eats like a Taurus. I will say that. So it's 1988, and I'm living in San Francisco. And I'm living in one of these households. It's got roommates. It's a Sunday night, so I'm going to tell you a Sunday night story. And one of my roommates is this really interesting young woman from Brazil who goes by the name of Raquel. That's her name. And Raquel was quite unusual with her physiological form. She told me that she was born without any marrow in her bones. So when she was young, she had to have a transfusion, like a marrow transfusion from her brother. And then she told me that she was born without any ovaries. I'm like, that's very unusual. No ovaries and no marrow. And when I looked at Raquel, she had the most unusual face. She had a face that she was cute, but she looked a little like a gargoyle. Like, okay, a little bit like a gargoyle, but she was a cute gargoyle, if you can imagine that. She had a very cute persona, very, very bright, very happy. And at that time, I'd been doing a lot of research on alien abductions. This is back in the 80s, like 1986, 87, 88. And I had it was somebody I worked with. Her sister was a therapist in San Francisco, and she was working with people who had been abducted, which I thought was quite interesting at that time. I'd read Whitley Strieber's book, and so I'd interviewed a couple of her patients, both of whom shared a similar characteristic. Okay. They both had faces that didn't quite sort of match up. Like there was something off about their faces. And they also had this kind of gargoyle-like look about them. They had unusual ears. It was a guy and a girl. And the girl, young woman, she had webbed hands. So this part of her finger was webbed right there. It was very strange. And she was very new agey, kind of. She's really into Ashtar Command and stuff like that. And he, on the other hand, was very bright. I've talked about this guy before. He was super, super bright, really bright. The guy had memories of being picked up, a number of them, which he shared with me. I think I actually put it up on YouTube one time, that interview. It was really interesting. Anyway, Raquel had a very similar face to these people that had gone through these. And so I started to ask her about her past. And she told me that she had lapses of memory in her childhood, which I thought was, fairly unusual, but, not completely out of the ordinary, since some people do have that. But it fit the kind of missing time pattern with her. Okay. So one night she says to me, Robert, I want to go to that church where the people sing and they're being touched, they're being touched. I said, oh, you want to go to a charismatic church? She says, yeah, there's one on down the street. So I think it was on Fillmore Street. So we go there, right? So we just show up at this Black Baptist church on a Sunday night in Oakland. Everybody in there is Black except me and Raquel. And, it's my first time I've ever been to anything like this. I'm being taken there by a little Brazilian alien, a little pixie Brazilian alien. So we go to this place and, it's like everything's pumping. It was being simulcast. The service was being simulcast on, I think, a local AM station. So that was going on. And there was a minister, was a woman, and she was pumping the energy. Everybody was just getting real ecstatic, and I'm getting caught up in this thing. So they start to, do the laying on of the hands, right? I'm going, oh man, so this is going to get very real here very soon. And we're sitting in the back, and eventually, they get to us, and Raquel is in front of me. And this woman is speaking in tongues, right? Total glossolalia, puts her hand right on her head. And Raquel, it's like she got hit with like 50,000 watts of just pure electric current. She starts spasming and falling backwards. I'm going, holy shit, this is real, you know? And then she comes to me and then she puts her hand on me. I'm like, nothing. There's nothing that happened. And I'm like, okay, well, I felt kind of left out, you know, but then I realized that Raquel was just really, really different. It's like something guided her to this thing so she could completely get like totally zapped. And I was a witness to this thing. And so it was on a Sunday night, which is why I'm telling the story. All right, I'll fast forward. And it was maybe about 6 months after that. And I was living in a different place in San Francisco. And I had this dream. And Raquel is in my dream. And it was, to this day, it was the most real dream I've ever had. Like, I was not in a dream. I was somewhere else. Okay? A lot of stuff like this happened in San Francisco. And Raquel and I are at the top of Dolores Park in San Francisco. And it's a beautiful, warm night, wonderful night. And we could see the city off in the background. And above us is this massive UFO. I mean, massive, right above us. And then something happened and the UFO took off. And then she and I were there. And I was looking at her and I said, what just happened? I said, we just experienced missing time. We just had missing time. And she kind of agreed with me. And I'm like, well, we got to tell somebody about this. This is pretty far out. And then I eventually woke up from there. I never forgot that dream. And I think I asked somebody about it. I think it was some psychic or something. And they said that I had traveled to a possible future with her. I don't know. But clearly she was very different, very, very different. And again, most clear, vivid. It wasn't even like a dream. I stepped into this other reality. And then who knows what happened during that missing time thing. Anyway, just a little anecdote before we get the show going tonight. Ani says, I know it wasn't a dream. What's going on, Isla? Yeah, I know it wasn't a dream. It was pretty far out. The only white folk in the house has web fingers. Oh my God, that's funny. That's really funny. All right, so I got a good show waiting for us tonight. Judy says maybe it was an alternate timeline for you too. Hey, Paulette, nice to see you. Maybe it was. To this day, I had a number. San Francisco was a portal for me. I had a lot of really wild stuff happen to me in San Francisco. I'll tell you one other San Francisco dream, and then we'll jump into this. This is when I was living in the house with Raquel, and this dream really stayed with me. And it actually kind of put me on a path in some ways. And in the dream, I was in the future. Clearly, this was the future. And I appeared in this environment, and it was very natural on the outside, right? Very natural world. And off in the distance was like, it was a city, but there was nothing. It was like a walled off city. But the air, the atmosphere felt totally evil in this dream, completely evil. If I could describe it, I would say that it felt like if you could put the molecules of the Antichrist into the atmosphere, that's what it felt like. Okay. Even though everything was very pristine, and this young woman came up to me, and we started talking, and I said, "What's going on here? Something is wrong here. Something is very wrong here." She said, "What do you mean? We have everything that we want. We have all the food that we need, and nobody ever gets really sick. I'm like, oh, no, something's wrong here. And then she said, you're not from here. You're not from here. And she went to go run off and tell the people in the city that I was there. And then a few weeks ago, I was looking at the internet, and then I realized who it was. It was Ocasio-Cortez. No, I'm just kidding about that part. But that dream actually happened. It actually happened. And to me, it spun me off, and I got to thinking about these possible futures where everything is taken care of, but nobody has any rights or any freedom or anything along those lines. So, all right, that's enough dream talk for the night. But that was San Francisco. I had weird stuff happen to me there. All right, so tonight, what are we going to get into? Well, first of all, we have to recap last Sunday night. And last Sunday night, we had, guess what? We had the Jussie Smollett chart, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and I brought all that stuff out. And I said, there's a link here. There's a link between Jussie Smollett and Kamala Harris. And sure enough, absolutely 100%, there is a big link between them. Now, there are people on the internet that say that Smollett and Harris are related. That's not really true, because I've gone through some of the rabbit holes with that. And even though they share a similar last name, and it's through the mother's side, because her middle name is Harris Smollett, there's no connection between, at least in the immediate, between her and Kamala Harris. Okay. Now that said, Jussie Smollett worked on Kamala Harris's, campaigns. I mean, he was very involved in her political activity. So there's a very strong connection, and you could see that when the cameras went after her after Jussie got rung up on the charges, she did not want to talk to the media. She did not. She was not into it. She got caught off guard a little bit a few days before that, and she was doing a lot of and so when they caught up to her again, she did not want to, because there is a connection there, and Chicago is the base of operations, and I believe she was involved. Maybe Cory Booker, sort of tangentially, but I'm laying money down on Kamala Harris and the Obamas and Jussie Smollett. Oh, and what's her name? Not Susan Rice, but Valerie Jarrett. I think they're all in on this thing. And it's really the cap of a number of hoaxes that we've been having to deal with that are inclusive of racial division and strife. And these hoaxes are tearing, again, the social fabric apart. Now, I'm going to get into more of this tomorrow on the other show because I've got some other thoughts. But okay, here's where it gets now we get into another vector. Okay. Kim Foxx, who's the Attorney General of Chicago, she has had to recuse herself from being involved in the prosecution of Jussie Smollett. Why? Because she has a personal relationship with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was a mentor to Kim Foxx, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they worked on each other's campaigns as well. Okay. So Kim Foxx, Attorney General of Illinois, she had to recuse herself. Now, Kim Foxx has not, she has not sat on her hands in the interim. Oh, contrary. She has, in the interim, moved with light speed to press charges against R. Kelly. Now, R. Kelly has a place in Atlanta, and I think he's got another place somewhere else, but I'm not sure if R. Kelly has a residence in Chicago or Illinois. I could be mistaken on that, because part of what R. Kelly was really, doing his dirty shit. Part of that was done in Trump Tower, of all places, in New York City. Now, R. Kelly is a Capricorn, and he shares the same birthday as Elvis Presley. Well, speaking of Elvis, happy birthday, Suze. I meant to wish you a happy birthday on Facebook. Elvis, David Bowie, and R. Kelly are all born on the same day, which is January 8th. It's a very powerful number, January 8th. And Mr. Kelly's he's having some Saturn action for sure in his chart. Of course, there's Pluto that's been around his sun for a while now. But Saturn's really starting to make a grand entrance into his life. Anyway, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because all of a sudden now, Chicago has a much bigger case in some ways, and a case that Kim Foxx can throw herself into, which is the prosecution of R. Kelly. Of course, Michael Avenatti's involved, and it's a big deal. Now, it happened right around the same time as the arrest of Robert Kraft, which shocked everybody except for maybe me, because I think I look at him, he's I don't know, man. Bob Kraft is sleazy. Anyway, so he's really stepped out. He's really stepped out since his wife Myra passed away. We're going to get into his chart tonight, and I'm going to show you some rectification techniques that can be useful if you don't know somebody's birth time. Again, when you go through a rectification, you've got to go really through a pretty rigorous process. I mean, people will charge a large amount of money to go through the rectification process. So what I do, at least on this show, I try to find some things that are useful, doable, and put them together, and throw some darts at the wall, try to line some things up. I'll show you what I did tonight with Bob Kraft's chart to come to kind of an idea as to what his rising sign is and the time that he was born. And I'll show you sort of the reasoning behind that. And we're also going to look at tonight the chart of George Harrison. Now, George's birthday is on February 25th. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do tonight is we're going to look at his chart, but specifically, we're going to look at the night, which was December 29th, 1999, just a mere 2 days before the end of the 20th century. George Harrison was nearly stabbed to death. That was at 3:30 in the morning on the 29th of December. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at the charts of George Harrison, but primarily the stabbing, because we know the time of the stabbing. So it's going to be that synastry. I don't know the birth dates of Michael Abram, who was the man that stabbed George Harrison in the chest. It's a very trippy story. We're going to look at the astrology around that and some of the really eerie backstory with this guy, Michael Abram, and what he was going through. Some of this is going to kind of blow your mind a little bit when I show you some of this stuff. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at the chart of the moment. Of course, there's Mercury Retrograde, which is nearly upon us, and well, that sets the stage for everything for tonight. Let's see what you guys are talking about in the chat room. Let's see. Exactly. 1x short of triple X. Your Mercury retrograde is coming. Yes, it is going to be. It's going to be wild, right? So many hoaxes going on this week. Yeah. Yep. Then of course, hey Charles, what's happening? Then of course we've got Venezuela and Argentina. Not Argentina, Venezuela and Venezuela in the United States. There's a lot going on in that part of the world, isn't there? I'm not sure we get into that tonight, but maybe it comes up with was the chart of the moment. So, all right, let's get into this now. Let me see if I can pull up a chart of the moment here. All right. Here we go. Jasper's he's being a good guy. He's right over here. All right. Before I get into the chart of the moment, let's get a frame of reference around Mercury retrograde, and let's talk about Mercury retrograde just a little bit here. All right. Okay. So, all right. Mercury is going to be going retrograde on the 6th. That's the 6th of March. Okay. So we are already in the shadow of Mercury. So it's 29 degrees. We were in the shadow of Mercury retrograde starting on the 10th of February, which is 29 degrees Aquarius. So that's how you work with the shadow. It's the degree of Mercury in the sign before it, correct? So we're deep into the shadow, and Mercury goes retrograde, and it goes retrograde right on that 29th degree of Pisces. Oh, that's very interesting. Who do we know that's 29 degrees Pisces? Well, that's Harvey Weinstein. Very interesting. I wonder what we're going to see in the trial of Mr. Weinstein with the retrograde. Are there going to be people that will recant? Will there be pieces around the Weinstein trial that will be thrown out? Or will we see more evidence which is being exhumed from the past with a 29 degree Mercury retrograde? This is such an interesting degree because it's right there at the edge. It's so close to going into Aries, but it doesn't. And it feels to me like there is a major review factor at 29 Pisces. And here, okay, I'm going to take this up to kind of a spiritual level. I really feel like we're in a time of reckoning and revelation. It was interesting. I had E. Michael Jones on Friday, which was a very intense show, and he is not everybody's cup of tea, for sure. But he is very. Michael's one of the smartest, sharpest. I think researchers around, and Michael's fearless. I mean, he's absolutely fearless. He's guided by his faith. He's a very strident Catholic. We didn't get into the vulnerabilities of the Catholic Church, but let's just say that he is not a fan of the Jesuits. Okay, so if anybody was wondering what his position on the modern day Jesuits are, he's not a fan of theirs. Nor is he a fan of Francis, the Pope, just to let you know. So Michael is not a Catholic zombie, but he does have some very strong beliefs. And one of the things that we did talk about was we talked about this process of this reckoning and revelation, and that logos, his idea of logos is rising, and logos is consciousness, and it cannot be denied. And at some point, logos will again reinvest itself in the affairs of humans on a daily basis, right? So I think Michael is really talking about a type of cosmic order to things. So if you understand that, then then these ideas of ethnos and eros, they begin to take a back seat to this overarching principle, which is logos. So that was very interesting, and he and I we agreed on that. And I may not be in total agreement with some of his hardcore Catholic leanings. Clearly, he would not be in agreement with a lot of my world. I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. But I can find pieces of truth somewhere in there that are meaningful to me, and I think for the overall dialogue and discussion that we're having. So this idea of reckoning and revelation, it is happening. We cannot deny that this process is taking place. Jupiter in Sagittarius is bringing a major expansion to the global theater. I mean, things are happening now at such a fast rate, highly accelerated. Jeffrey Epstein has had basically a reversal with his decision that was rendered by, I believe, Costa, who's the Secretary of Trade, because he was involved at one point with letting Epstein, have some slack with this decision that had been made around the young women who clearly had a lot of evidence, and they were all involved in a suit against Epstein. Anyway, Epstein is now back under the spotlight, in the hot seat. Okay, so we have Epstein coming back into the fray. We have this thing with Jussie Smollett, which is one of the most stupid hoaxes of all time, coming to the surface, and not only just coming to the surface, but having the reverse effect that it was intended to have. Right? This is what's going on now. If you set out to do something, the reverse, if it's really egregious, is going to come back, and it's going to change things. So he set out to create more racial division, more strife, more animosity towards Donald Trump and his followers and white America. And what happened? It whipped back on him like a cosmic boomerang. Okay, that's what happened. And then you have people on the left and people on the right and people on the black and people on the white. They were like, liar. They were united together in a denouncement of illusion and a lie. That's what brought them together. So it was like, isn't that amazing? Your lie brought people together. This is the time we're living in now. And it's happening very quickly. So the Robert Kraft deal is kind of a part of this too. We'll get into that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because of this degree of Mercury at 29 degrees on the 6th of March. That's the end of the zodiac, right? That is the end of the line. That's when the film runs out. All the credits have run. Then all of a sudden it goes, and the film runs out, right? That's what happens at 29 degrees, and you put a new reel on, put a new movie on. So right there at the edge, we're going backwards. So what happens as a result of that? I mean, I feel like because it's in Pisces, we're dealing with a lot. We're dealing with fact. We're dealing with fiction. We're dealing with everything that's associated with Pisces, the alpha and the omega and duality and all. Pisces is this great miasma of all this material. And we're at that 29th degree, and we're going backwards. We're looking back. We're recycling from the end point of the zodiac before we can move forward. I'm telling you, this time at the 29th degree, there is going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be cleaned up, or at the very least, it's going to come to the surface. I would not be surprised at all if I'm not going to say that, they're going to, I'm not going to say that they're going to all of a sudden find out who did 9/11. I think that's a bit drastic. And I'm not sure that's ever going to happen, or at least not in the near future. Okay. However, I also think that there are things that are going to come up here that are details, missing pieces, missing links from the past that are going to resurface. It's kind of like a body that's been disposed of, like on a lake, but it wasn't really weighted down all that much. All of a sudden, it pops up, and then there's this there's a new set of facts, and all of a sudden, the trail is not that cold anymore, right? For whatever, this is what it feels like. There's going to be this emergence of things coming into our consciousness from the 29th degree. And I believe it'll be historical. These are historical events. But I also think that it's a really good time to figure out where you are. You know, where are you? You know, where is your head? Where's your heart? And where's your consciousness? Because we're living in a time now, I'm telling you, this shit is accelerating. It is moving fast, very fast. Now, pursuant to that, there is another story that's developing, and this is a very Piscean story. It comes out of the Fertile Crescent, the birthplace of the three Abrahamic faiths. Right now, as we speak, Jared Kushner is working feverishly to put together plans for peace in the Middle East. And part of that plan is to build the third temple. The Palestinians are involved, the Jordanians are involved, the Saudis are involved. Okay? To me, this is going to be a very interesting event. And you want to keep your eyes on what's happening with Kushner in the Middle East and this peace plan and the rebuilding of the temple. Because when that happens, and I guarantee you it's going to happen, that we're going to be swept up in this wave of biblical prophecy that I think is, for the most part, BS. Because it goes back to, what's his name? John Nelson Darby, and it goes to Schofield, the Schofield annotated Schofield Bible, and all the stuff that's connected to their version of Revelation and the rapture and all that stuff. And all these Christians they're just throwing money. They're throwing money at this project, right? Yeah, come on. Let's go. Let's build that sucker, right? Because they think that when that happens, you know, Christ will return, and then all of Christ's enemies, the enemies of humanity, will be smoted, and all the good Zionists, you know, they'll be popped up, and they'll all be in recliner chairs with diet sodas and kettle corn, watching the whole thing, right? And I'm not anti-Christian, but I'm not a fan of this theology, because this theology is driving everything, and I think it's nuts. I think it's absolutely insane. Anyway, 29 degrees, Mercury and Pisces going backwards. Now, what is the end point here on Mercury? So Mercury stations at 7. Stations at 7, 16-7, and it goes direct on the 29th. Oh, that wasn't that interesting. There's that number again. We start off with Mercury going retrograde at 29. It goes direct at 16 degrees on the 29th. Very interesting. Okay. So just out of curiosity, what is the Sabian symbol for Pisces 19? Let's find out. Or 16. Let's just see. So that's the end point. Let's see what we got. Okay. Pisces 16. Oh, this is good. I like this. This is a good one. So the Sabian symbol for Pisces 16 is, in the quiet of his study, a creative individual experiences a flow of inspiration. The reliance upon one's inner source of inspiration and guidance. So that'll be very good, because I think after the retrograde, we're going to need some time of reflection. That's for sure. And the next few symbols are very interesting, right? So we go from, in the quiet of his study, the creative individual experiences a flow of inspiration. And then at 17, the next symbol up is an Easter parade. The capacity inherent in all great socio-cultural images to unite the members of a community in a display of excellence. The next symbol up for that, 18, in a gigantic tent, villagers witness a spectacular performance. That's the collective appeal of a well-staged and exciting display of skill or oratory. So this is in association with a revivalist tent. This is what Mark Jones, this is how he interpreted it, okay? Rudyard says, at first, Mark Jones interpreted the gigantic tent as the locale for a revivalist meeting. Later, he suggested a circus tent instead. Okay? So there's clowns and acrobats and animal trainers and all that stuff. Pisces 19, a master instructing his disciple. The transfer of power and knowledge, which keeps the original spiritual and creative impulse of the cycle active and undeviated. Then we have Pisces 20, a table set for an evening meal. And that ends the first level. That ends the first level of this stage of the symbols. But it continues, they continue to be very religious / spiritual as we move towards that 29th degree. The 21st degree of Pisces, under the watchful and kind eye of a Chinese servant, a girl fondles a little white lamb. So that's a symbol of purity, right? A symbol of purity. Mary and her little lamb, innocence, okay, which can have its own interpretive value and meaning. Then we have Pisces 22, a prophet carrying tables of the new law is walking down the slopes of Mount Sinai. The need to bring down to the level of everyday existence the clear realizations made manifest in a great peak experience. Then at 23, Pisces, materializing medium, giving a seance. And really from Pisces 16 to Pisces 23, seven degrees, or roughly 7 days worth of symbolic interpretation is loaded with religious, it's imbued with religious and spiritual meaning, okay? So as we come up and out of the retrograde, those first 7 degrees are very interesting. And you may want to pay attention to what's going on during that time, like in your life, in your work, in your sleep, if you meditate, if you pray, but also in the world, in looking for these symbols of some form of religiosity and potentially even a sense of hope. But you have to watch out, make sure it's not false hope, okay? At 24, the symbols change a little bit. On a small island surrounded by the vast expanse of sea, people are seen living in close interaction. And then it goes back to 25, a religious organization, succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influence of perverted practices and materialized ideals. Oh, isn't that interesting? Because Mercury will go retrograde and it will go back over this degree at 25 Pisces. Very interesting. The power of the soul to intervene in the personal life and to induce necessary catharses. And then at 26, we're getting right to the end, which is where we're going to end and where Mercury retrograde will begin. Watching the very thin moon crescent appearing at sunset, different people realize that the time has come to go ahead with their different projects. Okay. Then we get to 27. It's another lunar symbol. The harvest moon illumines a clear autumnal sky. It's an interesting symbol to be taking place at 27 Pisces, which is really the gateway of the spring equinox. So we have a harvest moon symbol at the spring equinox. So it's right at the gate, right? Interesting. Then at 28, we have a fertile garden. So we have 3 lunar symbols in a row: the crescent moon, the harvest moon, and then the third one is a fertile garden under the full moon, reveals a variety of full-grown vegetables. And then the final degree is light breaking into many colors through a prism. Okay, that's where Mercury retrograde is going to start. Light breaking into many colors through a prism. So we're going to be going through the reverse process here, right? So we're the many colors at the start of its Mercury retrograde, and we're going to be shot back through the prism because we're going backwards. So the multitude, right, is going to go from this direction to that direction. So this is a very interesting development. So we're actually moving in kind of this like a beam of light in some ways, right? We're going back through time, through space, through history, through memory, through personal experience. And there is a kind of a recoalescence, and we're going to come back through that degree again. But I feel like the backside of this Mercury retrograde, and I tell you when that's going to happen. That's going to happen on the 17th. That's going to happen on the 17th of April. Okay, 17th of April. And that's going to be very interesting because at that time we'll be into spring already, right? And that will actually be the full moon. The full moon begins on the 17th of April, and it begins to peak starts on the 18th, my bad. So it goes 29 degrees, and then the following day, that's the 17th, the following day will be the full moon in Libra, and then begins the full moon, and it culminates on the 19th. That's a very interesting cycle. And of course, Mercury goes into Aries at that time. It's going to be a lot of Aries energy. Again, we're talking about April. Right around the 20th, we've got, excuse me, Mercury and Venus moving into conjunction with one another. And then Uranus at that time, well, it's out of Aries into Taurus, but Chiron, which is returned to Aries, will be at 3 degrees during that time. So we're going to have, let's see, very interesting. We're going to have Mercury right here. I think the closest it gets, it's going to be right there in the 21st with Mercury at 0. Mercury at 4, Venus at 0, and then Chiron at 3. Okay. Now, Venus and Chiron will wind up conjuncting right around the 23rd, 24th. That'll be a very interesting time for relationships. And there can be both equal amounts of wounding and healing with relationships. during that time. I'm hoping the healing part and getting into a lot. I think a lot of power struggles can be dealt with during that time in levels of equanimity. Very interesting. And we're exploring the relationship and the dynamics of power and personal will and the wounds that come along with it. And let's be honest for just a moment, as humans, our wills have been thwarted for a very long time. Okay. And many of us have no idea how to work with our will in general, because most of us are pursuing things that in many ways our will is not aligned with, which is why I'm going to get into this Mars webinar on Saturday. It's how to align your will astrologically. You know, where's your Mars? What's it doing? When you align your Mars in activities and areas inside your chart, you're aligning yourself with your will, right? You know, that's for Saturday. But we've been thwarted. We've been really thwarted. Most humans are messed up. We're dysfunctional around our will. Will is connected to power, and we give both away constantly. And it's only when we can untangle these things and understand the nature of will, understand the nature of true will, that we can begin to move forward in our lives. And understanding Mars in the astrological chart, I think, is a big part of it. It's not the only part, but it's a large part of it. So when we get into Venus, what do we get into? We get into relationship. That's what Venus represents. And when we have Venus in Aries, it is a relationship with Aries, or it's a relationship with will. Okay. And because it's happening right here, just after the equinox, it is spring energy. So it is open. The energy is open for us to explore the dynamics in our relationship with will and personal power, which I believe is a function of a higher will and a higher power. And with Chiron, we can see where we may have either given things away or given up too early or stuck with something too long or put our energy in the wrong direction. Sometimes it can be relationship oriented. And I think there can be some potential for forgiveness too. Now I'm moving ahead here. I'm in here. Let me do a little share screen. I'll show you guys, just so we have some visuals with everything. Let me go up here, and I'll show you. Here we go. I've been talking a lot. Let me give you a visual. Okay, so here we are. So we're talking right here. We're talking, here it is, right here. This area, 420. Look at that, right there. This is now these. Unfortunately, this is also a very dark period. This is a very, very dark period as well. These are the days of Molech, right? These are the sacrificial days. These are heavy days, heavy, heavy days. So we also have to be on our toes, especially with Chiron. This is interesting. You know, the world is waking up to this shit. The world is waking up. The internet is a super collider of consciousness. Now, the internet itself is probably conscious already. I mean, we've invested so much of we've animated it, I think. I think we've animated the internet to some degree. And if we haven't, there's probably some quantum computer out there that's doing it. Anyway, but I think people are waking up in this period right here. Remember, we've just come out of this really powerful transit of Mercury in the retrograde, where the fragmented light gets shot back through the prism and is a focal point. It's a beam or a ray of light that's going backwards, and then it reverses and comes back out again. And right here on the 17th, which is the day that I'm talking about, I really feel like there's a potential for very new awareness, okay? Very new awareness around your life and your relationship to the totality of everything, right? The interconnectedness of everything. Some might say sort of the divine or sacred element within everything. I feel like this is happening. There is a lot of potential because we're dealing with spring energy. It's new, but it's this Mercury retrograde. It's a very interesting Mercury retrograde. And remember, these degrees starting right here right here, right at 17, 16. Because we know that Mercury, right here, Mercury goes direct at 16. It's right here, right there, on the 29th. Okay, and it's on 16 for quite a few days, like 5 days. It's a long time. Wow, that's interesting. It's almost like the day the Earth stood still. And then on April 1st, April Fool's Day, it's still in 16, 16, and then we're moving forward. And remember, these degrees are all imbued with some very deep spiritual / religious symbolism, and the final degrees are lunar and represent the moon. And when we get into those, the imagery of the moon, we're dropping down into the subconscious, and we're dropping down into sort of the non-verbal connection. We're moving out of sort of this solarized relationship with reality and consciousness, and we're moving into a more intuitive kind of state with these three moon symbols, which I think is really appropriate at the end of Pisces, to be honest with you. It's really appropriate because it has a bit of a flavor of gestation, because there are three symbols there that are so. You get the crescent moon, which is really sort of it is the starting point of the new moon, right? It says, okay, the moon has been new, now we can move into new projects. Then we get the harvest moon, which is the full moon, and you see that from one symbol to the next. And then there's the under the moonlight, people are gardening and having this very interesting relationship with vegetation and sustenance, but it's not happening during the light of day. And then everything goes back to that prismatic kind of like jolt back into the world. The final degree, which is really it's like 0 Aries, but the final degree, as Rudyard has it at 30 Pisces, is a majestic rock formation resembling a face, is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness, and as he grows up, begins to look like it. It's a very interesting symbol, and it's about Nathaniel Hawthorne's story, The Great Stone Face, which is an allegorical sense to show the capacity for self-transformation latent in man. That's at the beginning of Aries. And then that brings us back to the start of the astrological calendar. I think this is going to be a very interesting retrograde. And I think there's going to be a lot bubbling to the surface. And it'll be a lot out there, and it'll be a lot in here as well. And I know a lot of you, either through personal contact, readings, showing up on the Monday through Thursday, 15 Minutes of Flame. And I know a lot of you have been doing your own individual work and getting to this point where, you know, you're clearing out and really looking at sort of the nature and relationship between you and your soul. And I think that's where we're at right now. That is where we're at. And this is, I think, the most important place that we can be, because, you know, we are on standby, I think. You know, and this could go on for, you know, a few years. It could go on for a few weeks, it could go on for a few months. But it feels like things are really accelerating from what I'm seeing out there, and even what I'm experiencing in my own life. This is truly a time of really accelerated consciousness. And this Mercury retrograde is going to be fascinating, absolutely fascinating to take in. All right, let me see what your thoughts are on this. So I've been talking a bit here. Let's see what we got. Let me go over here. Here we go. Is it a hit gone wrong? Let's see, we got 97 people here. Cool. think he talks like he thinks we understand the stuff. That's why I tried to break it down, Mark. So much going on. Has Venus Pluto happened yet? Yes, it happened. I think so. Oh, Raven and I. Yes, thank you. Yes, Raven. She's doing a reading. I'm sorry if I went ahead. I'm sorry. I kind of got off into a little bit of a tangent there. Looks like, I see, nobody's able to deny that the world is, it is right now. It's interfering with everyone's personal lives, it seems to me. Okay. What else is happening here? Linda, go vegan. Sorry, Linda. Can't do it yet. That'll be my last spiritual test. Let's see. What else do we have? Yeah. Let's see what else. Mark says, heck, I'm just an old dog still trying new tricks, and this stuff is a doozy. Well, Mark, just try to make it as simple as I can. Simple as I can. At the end of the day, life is not that difficult. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Don't lie, and don't give your consent unless you're fully informed. And I think if you can do those three things, I think you've got the basis and the foundation of being able to navigate. But that would be a really short show, wouldn't it? Kate says the best thing I can do is start lifting weights. Absolutely, I highly recommend it. It is great. It is a great way to exercise. Okay, let's just get into the chart of the moment. And I apologize if I took you guys off on a tangent there. I just felt like it was interesting. Okay, let's go chart share. Let's do that. There we go. Bada bing. Here it is, the chart of the moment. Let's pop it out. And this is in addition to everything else that I've been riffing about tonight. Should I make this bigger? Can I make it bigger? No. Okay, well, let's do this. Yeah, look at that. Technology. There it is. Okay. No wonder I'm going on and on. Jupiter, right there. Well, at least it's on the ascendant in for done. I always do this. This is my chart. I always have to change this. Give me 1 second. You would think that I'd have this down by now. Give me 1 sec. There we go. Default settings. Modify the data. Let's get into this. We'll do just a quick chart of the moment thing. Then we'll get into some other stuff. Okay. Let's get as accurately placed as possible. Lovely Fredericksburg, Texas. This is actually a very cool place, I have to admit. I don't know how long I'll be here, but it's a cool place. Okay. Let's go back home. Go. And chart them up. Here it comes. Bada bing. Yeah, okay. See, I didn't want to go on and on about chart of the moment because I didn't have the right ascendant. If you were in France, it'd be the right ascendant. But you're not. And I'm not either. Okay, here's the ascendant. It's 5 Libra. Let's just take a quick look at what's happening. We had the Venus conjunction with Pluto on Friday. Very powerful Venus-Pluto conjunction. We already dealt with Venus-Saturn. Okay, so Venus has moved out now and is moving on. But very intense period here for contracts and bonds. And it is the determination or the breaking or the beginning of contracts and bonds. And that's what we've been going through for roughly the last 10 days, really since we started to talk about this about 2 weeks ago, when Venus was back here, right at around 11 degrees, 12 degrees, and we started to talk about this. Jupiter is still in trine with Uranus, which is adding to the acceleration of revelation and truth. This is what's happening. It's happening very quickly now. And when Uranus moves into Taurus, we'll still have some of it. It'll be much whiter, but we're dealing with fire now, so it's really heating up and has been for a while. For the last, I would really say for like the last 3 to 4 weeks, as Jupiter moved into right around 19, 20, 21 degrees Sagittarius. Okay, Jupiter is still in square with Neptune. It's moved beyond Neptune a little bit. And now it's in square with Mercury. But Mercury is going to retrograde and come back into square with Jupiter. And that'll be interesting too, right? I mean, look at what Jussie Smollett is doing. He's hired 3. Okay, this is a really interesting question. All right, so this guy theoretically did all of this because he wanted more money, which is bullshit. Okay, he wanted more money. How is that going to equate more money? Is he going to get victim compensation? Is that, oh, poor Jussie? Oh, well, maybe he wanted more money because there was an anti-lynching bill that was passed, and maybe Jussie Smollett could have had some kind of adjustment or some kind of compensation for his terrible lynching that he had been through after a bill which had already been on the books and was given a silent approval, but that was a bill that was forwarded by Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. Maybe he could have made a few bucks off of that. I don't know. Food for thought. But clearly he said he did this because, or at least the guys, the brothers, the Nigerian brothers, who should probably have their own reality show after this is all said and done, right? They got to have their own reality show. I mean, come on. Yeah. Anyway, but he's got 3 high-powered lawyers, and he's got like a crisis management team. Where does he get the money for that? And now he's saying that there's other evidence that he's not guilty of these things. Well, this, my friends, is the Jupiter square to Mercury. Liar, liar, pants on fire, hire a lawyer, right? And sit your ass in the dryer. I mean, come on. This is what's going to happen. He's hired a legal team, Jupiter, Sagittarius, Mercury, Pisces. We're going to be going through the Jussie Smollett canon. It's going to be happening over the next few weeks. And guess what? Mercury retrograde is going to be a part of it. Should be very interesting, to say the least. Okay. Let's see what else. We've got Pluto now in square with Uranus. That is kind of more collective oriented, right? And then we also have, what else? Saturn is, let's see, Uranus is squaring Venus. Is that right? Oh, yeah, Uranus is squaring Venus. Disruptions in relationships. And that's been going on for the last couple of days. Sudden disruptions in relationships, probably for the last 5 or 6 days. But you can also create new relationships with a Venus-Uranus square. As a result of all that. And what else? We have Moon in Scorpio tonight. And so tomorrow when you go to work, the Moon will be in Scorpio. Scorpio moon on Monday. Interesting. Right now, it's the moon is in trine with Mercury. So it's a psychic, very, very psychic moon. And pay attention to your dreams tonight. And Mars, of course, in Taurus, 7 degrees. And it's a nice, 1 degree rather, sorry, my bad, no, 7. And it's in a nice sextile with the sun. And that will continue to manifest itself tomorrow. In the next couple of days, well, Mars is in orb here. And that's good, slow, steady, enduring kinds of energy. So that's good. We like that. We like it. So this is like get shit done. This is like get shit done energy right here. Sun Mars sextile. But you have to put forth the effort. If you put forth the effort to get things done, it may start off slow, but you pick up momentum, and man, you'll get a lot. You'll get a lot accomplished over the next couple of days. So kick it into gear. There's no air. Everybody's suffocating tonight. Look, there's no air here. It's just the ascendant. And we're not going to get any air anytime soon. You do that when you're a kid. Anyway, yeah. So when's the next air station coming up? I guess it's Venus and Aquarius. We'll get some air. We'll get some very impersonal air at that point. Let's see. Let me check in with the chat room there. See what you guys are chatting about. He was making more than $1 million a year. Yep. Cato says, try to get my affairs in order. Good time to meditate, connect with higher dimensions. Loved it. What else we have here? Anything else? Early Lynchy Bill has a hidden agenda that even if you touch a person, you will fall under lynching law. I bet the liberals lynched someone. Well, they tried to. Jussie was their test case. That's what it was. Jussie was their test case. Obama must have promised to defend him. Obama, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was either Obama or Michelle. I think Michelle had to surrender her law license. Like Michelle Obama cannot legally practice law. So she's not going to be involved. You know that. Don't do that shit with her in the trouble breathing. I'm sorry, Judy. I apologize. But didn't you guys used to do stuff like that when you were kids? Right? Some ways. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm all jammed up here. Look at that. Hall of Mirrors. You got a little weird there. Okay. So that's the chart of the moment. All right. You ready for some real fun now? All right, let's get into this George Harrison stuff. Man, this is weird. This is real. This is so weird. This stuff is going to blow your mind. All right. Let me do this. Okay. Hold on. Here we go. Do I have it here? Did I do it? Oh, man, I think I have it on my other chart, my other computer. So I've been using these two different computers. Okay, I think I can do it because I'm working with astro.com. No, I think it's here. I think I pulled it off. Yeah, I think so. Wait a second. I like to be a lot more organized than this. Okay, this is it. This is why I use this computer. Okay. All right, that's not the one I want to use. Let's get rid of that. There's my client from this last week. Yes. Okay. Where are these screenshots? Don't want that. Oh, man. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to have to reload this. Give me 1 sec. What is this? No, that's not it. Bear with me, dear friends. I will get us there. I will navigate us to the end of this journey. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to have to go back into the raw feed here. Everything seems to be on the other computer. Give me one sec. All right. Okay. So let me fire up the George Harrison stuff. You guys are gonna flip out, man. This is crazy. Okay. In here. So we're going to be looking at George Harrison's chart a little bit. His birthday is tomorrow. I'd have to say that George Harrison is my favorite Beatle. I think he was the one guy that kind of got it. Right. Okay. So we got that, and bring this up here. Okay. All right. Let me just make sure I have this other stuff. Okay. Oh, this is so weird. Grab this. Come on. All right. Living life between two computers can be really challenging, but I'm doing my best to integrate them all. Now it's not even, oh, come on. You need to do this for me. Don't do this now. It's not even Mercury retrograde yet. One more time. Let's see what we got here. Not, I can just, yeah, this is why I have two computers, because this one has decided that it does not want to play nice with me anymore. Okay, so let's get into this. This is the Harrison. This is the George Harrison material. First of all, here, I'll take you guys through his chart a little bit. It's a really interesting chart. Here we go. Okay, so here is the George Harrison chart. So he's a Pisces, obviously, but he's very retiring. Look, he's got his sun in the 4th house. And even though he's a performer with the Leo midheaven and his true node is up there, that's where he's supposed to go. He's supposed to be out in the world. With Pluto near his ascendant, he's going to transform the world through creating and performing, even though he was likely an agent of Tavistock. Nonetheless, he's living out his Dharma with his true node in Leo near the midheaven, correct? Now, he has the moon right here on the ascendant, and it's right there. Looks like 1 degree Scorpio, 0 Scorpio. So George was quietly intense. He probably was the most psychic of the Beatles, okay? He has a sun-moon trine with the moon on the ascendant in Scorpio and the sun trining the ascendant as well. Look at all these angles. He's got a grand trine. He's very smart. Mercury in Aquarius, 3rd house, trine Saturn, trine Neptune. That's the spiritual component right there. Mercury, Neptune trine. And we've got Saturn, Neptune trine as well, which is the solidity or the materialization of spiritualization, right? Saturn's material, even though it's in the 8th house. He has some dark material here. Does this represent Tavistock? You know, are we dealing with Gemini and spycraft and this external authority in the 8th house, hidden, tucked away? And is the Saturn-Uranus conjunction part of that dynamic, right? Uranus means something new, something radical, something different, something revolutionary, and Saturn is mainstream. So George Harrison has the goods, right? He's bringing new things into the world. You know, he's the guy that brings transcendentalism and the sounds of India, although there have been other songs. Brian Jones did his own version of it with Painted Black and some other stuff. But the Beatles take, you know, big advantage of it here. He's got both Pluto and Jupiter in the sign. Well, Jupiter in Cancer, Pluto in Leo, and both of them are in the 9th house. So he's going to do really, really well in places that are, you know, far and away from home. So whether it's India or the United States, George Harrison is going to prosper and perhaps even have another home elsewhere. I did an interview with his sister a long time ago, back when I was on Blog Talk Radio. She was totally oblivious to any of the like weird Beatles stuff, okay? Totally oblivious to it. But she was a nice person. And then here, right, 11th house, that's the house of groups and teams and organizations. And there's Neptune. So the Beatles are an 11th house phenomena. So for George, that is a spiritual component, right? Neptune in the 11th house. It's also, you know, it can be a little sketchy with friends. Let's put it that way. Okay. Now, all right. What sign is Paul McCartney? Or at least what sign do we think he is or was? Gemini, right there, right? Gemini, right there. Okay. Keep that in mind. Remember that. He's got Venus. Look at where his Venus is. Oh, hello. It's at the 29th degree of Pisces. We were just talking about that. He's an old soul. George Harrison was an old soul, right? This is his last incarnation. I'm telling you that right now. He's done. He's done. He's gone off into that kaleidoscopic fragmentation of the prismatic light. Okay? But there's also deception here with friends, with the Neptune. There, he had to participate in the deception of the Beatles, right there, the 11th house, right? Neptune. He's even talked about. He was the one Beatle, right? That he didn't show up one night, right? There was like this thing with Paul and Ringo. He didn't show up. Was it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something? He was the one guy that didn't show up, and he's left cryptic clues about what happened. He had to live with the deception of the Beatles. Exactly. Very interesting chart. Sun Saturn square, old soul, right? Old soul. Mars in Capricorn, he gets things done. Squaring his moon, he sometimes had to do things. Like when you have like a Mars moon square, sometimes you do things against your own emotional best interest. Like your emotions want to do something, and Mars is forcing you to do something else. And you have to figure this out, right? So you can be in conflict with how you feel and how you move your energy. So Capricorn represents, you know, record companies and, you know, the man and business and all that stuff. Now, what's also interesting is this is the 3rd house, ruled by Gemini. And what sign is Paul McCartney? Or at least Paul 1.0? Gemini. So could this be indicative of him having Gemini enemies, Gemini rivals? You know, the band of brothers. Is this indicative of McCartney? It's interesting to think about. Anyway, a very interesting chart. Loaded, man. This guy has got a loaded chart. And like I said, there's some conflict involved, and there's some really interesting inconjuncts. Like, I'm not sure that he was always comfortable with how he was changing the world. I don't think he was always comfortable with that, but I do think he really enjoyed performing. Okay? All right, so let's get into this now. I gave you a little bit of a thing on his chart, a little bit of a breakdown, okay? So let's go here. All right, and we're going to look at when he was attacked. Very, very interesting. And okay, so let's go in here and give me one sec. All right, so we're going to go right here, and where is he? Oh, yes. There's George. And then we're going to go here. I've already done these charts. And the stabbing. Okay, sorry, so check this out. So we're going to look at the synastry of the event. And we know when the event was. Okay, you're going to trip out over this. Just a little bit. All right, so here we go. Here's George on the inside. Okay, there's the sun, which we talked about. There's that Scorpio moon. Oh, look at this. Pluto was in his first house. Now, Pluto had been transiting this first house for a while, right? Since roughly 1985, right here. That's when Pluto hit his ascendant. Now, when the attack occurred, Pluto was right here, and it was at, let's see, 19 degrees, okay? Now, so the attack took place in his home, and you should see where he lived. He lived in Oxfordshire, okay? Here's what's interesting. Go over here. This is Mars. Mars is violence, correct? It's violence, energy, aggression, intensity. It's right here at the cusp of the 8th house, which is the house of death and transformation. The underworld. It's conjuncting Uranus, which we know conjuncts Saturn. So this is swift, right? Swift. What sign is Uranus and Saturn and even the moon right here in the 8th house? Gemini. Gemini. All right, so we're talking duality. Also, who's a Gemini? Okay, we established that. But this is clearly, this is violence. I'm telling you, man. Mars in the 8th house. And when it gets within 2 to 3 degrees, 4 degrees of the next house, it's ingressing, right? Here it's retrograding, so it's very close. It's going backwards, but it's retro. If Mars was direct, this attack might have actually succeeded. Now, unfortunately, George Harrison died just 2 years after this attack took place. And he died of lung cancer, and he was being stabbed in the chest. You know, did something happen? Something stirred up in his lungs? And remember, Gemini rules the lungs and the chest area, correct? So there's Mars right there, 27, Taurus. It's right on that cusp. And we have Uranus at 0 gem and Saturn at 5 gem. So rules the lungs, Gemini, right? And that's where the stabbing wounds took place, in the chest cavity, chest area, and almost fatal. If Mars had been direct, I guarantee you, probably would have been fatal. Okay? What else is going on here? Look down here, right around his Mars. Right around his Mars, there's Venus, and there's Saturn, and there's the true node. Remember, this is the house of Gemini, right? It would suggest to me that whoever did this attack had a relationship with George Harrison because of Venus and Saturn, okay? That it would have been maybe even perhaps a professional relationship, because that's the nature. Oh, isn't that interesting? We just came through the Venus-Saturn conjunction. Look at that. It's right there in Capricorn. And over here, we have the Sun, Neptune, and Uranus. Okay, this is the individual. Theoretically, right? It's Michael Abram. That's his name, Michael Abram. And claims he was insane. Claims he was insane. Well, with the Sun, Neptune, Uranus conjunction in the 3rd house, that could be a real possibility, right? Could be a real possibility. And then here we have Jupiter at the top of the chart in Leo. Again, that's expanding, performing, right? Okay, opposite Mercury. I don't think this is as much of a telltale sign. There's so much retrograde going on. Jupiter's in retrograde, Mars is retrograde, Chiron's retrograde, Mercury's retrograde. Look at all this retrograde action. All right, so the key thing you really want to look at here is this Mars, right here at the cusp of the 8th house, sudden, swift. Saturn, Mars retrograde, and then this interesting Venus-Saturn conjunction, conjunct Mars down here. Then over here we have the moon, of course, on his ascendant. Well, that's in square with Mars as well. Remember I said that the Venus, well, he's got this, well, we know that Mars and moon are square. But not only that, but Venus and Saturn are also square the moon. Something unusual and something perhaps even a bit supernatural was going on. All right, I'm going to show you a picture of Michael Abram. Here we go. I think I can still do the screen share thing here. All right, this is the guy that stabbed George Harrison. What the hell is going on here? Okay. Now, some of you who are switched on know exactly what this is, right? This is a soul scalp. And how many times have we seen people, well, here, I'll even show you. I don't want to lose this page because we're going to be going to this website. This is a fascinating website. It's a good read. But I want to show you, let me see, what is this? Here, do I want this? Okay, let's do this. Quickly, let's do soul scalping. If you haven't seen this, it's gonna blow your mind a little bit, okay? Because we're gonna go back to the other page, and I'm gonna show you the resemblance here. Give me one sec. Okay, here we go. Soul scalping. Check out some of these images. Look at that. There's Richard Branson. Here we go. Here, let's go to the, that's a small version of this. Let's go to the big version. Okay, there's Bush, there's the Pope, there's John Kerry, there's McCain. Here's a real, this is part of, okay, here we go. Robert Downey Jr., there's Pharrell, Charlie Rose, there's Anna, what's her name? Oh, look at this, Prince Philip, he's got it on the other side, right? So soul scalping. Isn't this interesting? This apparently, this is where the devil takes your soul, right? This is where it happens. Let's go back to Michael Abram. Oh, look what we have there. This is the guy that stabbed George Harrison. All right, now let's go to this website. Okay, first of all, I noticed this before I go to this website. This guy right here, Michael Abram, was 33 years old when he stabbed George Harrison. Harrison was stabbed at 3:30 in the morning, okay? 3:30 in the morning. And this happened in 1999. And it was the final days of 1999. Like 2 more days is 2000, okay? 1999 is what? 33 years after 1966, which is supposedly when the original Paul McCartney died. So 33s are just stacking up here, right? And then, 1999 is 666 inverted, okay? Just a little side note. All right, so check this out. I'm going to read this. This is trippy. Now remember all that Gemini stuff I was talking about. Okay, 3rd house, 8th house, Gemini, Saturn in Gemini, okay? Uranus in Gemini, Mars. Let's keep that, remember that, keep that in mind. All right, here we go. Come on, you can do it. I know you can do it. Come on, you can do it. Oh, it's taking forever. How much time do we waste just watching the wheels go round and round? See, there's a little lemon thing in there for you. Um, this is, here we go. How about that? Whoa, what can we have here? Mr. Maka. All right, so now this is an interesting picture, right? This is an interesting picture. Of course, we have the hidden hands. It's a Masonic gesture. Okay, so this blog is pretty cool. Now check this out. This is where George Harrison lived. Now, could you imagine breaking into that thing? Could you imagine that? That nut job who had his soul scalped, right? So even December, if you go with December, that's a 12, 1, 2, that's a 3. And then you have a 30, so that's another 3. So that's a 33 right there, right? Right there. Interesting. I'll read this to you here. At approximately 3:30 a.m., Mike Abram, a 33-year-old native of Liverpool, avoided security by scaling the fence of Harrison's Friar Park estate near Henley-on-Thames, Oxfordshire, and entered the mansion by throwing a statue through a window which woke up the sleeping Harrison. George confronted Abram. That sounds like something out of the Bible, doesn't it? He was screaming at the spiritual beetle with a knife in his hand. The 56-year-old Harrison ran at Abram to try to tackle him and disarm him. So Harrison had some cojones. That's that Mars in third house in Leo. Well, the third house in Capricorn, but it's Leo midheaven, right? The attempt was unsuccessful, and George was stabbed in the chest repeatedly. So this person who wrote this gets into the numbers too. He said, did you notice those numbers? Probably just me. No, it wasn't just you. But when I see numbers like these repeated in such a way, I have to carefully pinpoint every detail out to the reader. It inhibits me. It shouldn't be inhibit. That's the wrong word. It inhibits me to look a bit deeper. If it inhibited this person, they wouldn't be looking deeper. Okay, wouldn't be. Maybe that's what he intended. I don't know. First thing that pops out to me is the year 1999. Nines come up so often within the Beatles legend. I can't help but notice the 9 straight away. Of course, if Michael Abram was 33 in 1999, it means he was born in 1966. 1966 is a year that comes up frequently in the Beatles mysteries. And here we have yet another reference, albeit casual, to 1966. Another curiosity, he's from Liverpool. Okay. The court heard how Mr. Abrams' condition deteriorated after the solar eclipse in August last year, and he felt he was on a mission from God. He developed this conviction after listening to the refrain, "It's gonna take money," from a George Harrison song. Got my mind set on you. You know that tune? It was oh, hey, come back. I guess we can go high. There we go. It was an app. It was, I didn't want that. It's okay. It was by a process of elimination that he thought Mr. Harrison was the alien from hell. Dr. Joseph said on Wednesday, George Harrison spoke something backwards to him. He thought he was cursing him in the devil's tongue. He realized it was all true, and George Harrison was shouting at him. He was a witch. Let me go back to this. Let me go back to actual size. That's interesting. Okay, so he said that he says that the picture looks fake. I don't think it's fake at all. The guy was soul scalped. Okay, there's some Charlie Manson stuff. There's some Mark David Chapman stuff going on here. Okay. The attack was admittedly downplayed by Harrison's family. The press stating that George, with his tireless wit, while being removed from the scene on a stretcher, proclaimed that he certainly wasn't auditioning for the Traveling Wilburys. However, according to Donnie, George's son, George died 4 times before making it out of the house. Stabbed over 40, can barely speak, let alone crack jokes. Always the clean cover story. Donnie says, I was woken by Rachel, our housekeeper, shouting, "Get up, something has happened. I've always been aware that something could happen to my parents due to their fame and fortune. I'm also aware of past circumstances involving other members of the Beatles." And there's Olivia, his wife, his son Donnie. Okay, here's where it gets really weird. It isn't weird enough. It says, I retreated hurriedly to the bedroom, shouting at my wife, "Someone is in the house." My wife was saying, "Stay in the room," but I decided to look again. I noticed the intruder again. As I looked down to the room below, I saw a person run from the kitchen. He stopped in the center of the room and looked towards me. He started shouting and screaming. He was hysterical and frightening. He said words to the effect, "You get down here. You know what it is." You could see a knife in one hand and a spear from part of the statue in the other. The statue that Harrison is referring to was the statue of St. George, slayer of dragons, placed on the exterior of his Friar Park home, in which the intruder threw through the window in order to gain access inside the home. So he takes this statue of St. George the Dragon Slayer and throws it through the window in order to get in. However, in this somewhat odd recollection interview, Olivia Harrison recalls it as being that of St. Michael, slayer of dragons, and compared Abram to Beelzebub. But St. George is the slayer of dragons. St. Michael is the leader of the army of God. Okay, so this goes into some biblical representation, okay? And here we go. There's St. George, right, the dragon slayer, and there's Michael. So we have George and Michael converging, not George Michael. It's a different story. Okay. All right. Later it was revealed that Abram actually thought he was the Archangel Michael, sent on a mission from God to kill the demonically possessed Harrison, in which case, what an incredible stroke of luck that this happened. Man happened to find a statue of St. Michael or George to throw through Harrison's window. It is uncanny, actually. A mentally ill man in a psychotic state who's never left Liverpool traveled nearly 200 miles to an unfamiliar location, located George's home, bypassed security, scaled the wall, found a statue of Saint whoever, picked it up, and threw it through a large window. Abram thought all four of the members were practitioners of black magic. Dr. Nigel Eastman told jurors. Where do we know that name, Eastman? Eastman Kodak? That's Linda Eastman, Paul McCartney's wife. Could that be a bit of a clue here? I'm not saying they're related, but it's interesting. He's not somebody who wanted to kill, but was driven to it. Well, why? Here's where it gets very interesting. Jurors also heard that Abram believed he was Archangel Michael and had been sent by God on a mission to kill Harrison, described as the Phantom Menace, a figure from the writings of Nostradamus. Initially, Abram believed Paul McCartney was the Phantom Menace, but after listening to some McCartney songs, decided it was Harrison, said Dr. Philip Joseph, another psychiatrist. Abram believed Paul McCartney was in his head, tormenting him. He realized that it was George Harrison behind this, telling Paul McCartney what to do. Oh, really? Very interesting. So, add another odd layer to this glass onion story. Just a quick little curiosity. Within the British Empire, there is a chivalry order deemed the most distinguished order of St. Michael and St. George. It is at present awarded to men and women who hold high office or who render extraordinary, important military service in a foreign country. So remember now, Harrison died from lung cancer, Gemini, less than 2 years after this incident. So to me, the really weird part around all this is the McCartney piece. That is the weird part because it starts off with McCartney, right? And what did we determine here? There's the moon in Gemini. The original Maca was a Gemini. Saturn, Uranus, Mars, right here, cusp of the 8th house. All this activity, third house ruler Gemini, Venus, Saturn, right? Professional conjunction with Mars. All right, so this guy sounds nuts, right? Totally nuts. But you saw that soul scalp. Somebody was working on this dude. Somebody was working on Michael Abram. And he was a psychotically and probably satanically controlled, mind-controlled killer. The question is, who was pulling his strings? Who was doing the soul scalping? Could it be that there are clues being left here by the third house, by the 8th house, by the association with Gemini? Rosie might know. She might know. Trippy, huh? Little astrological forensics for you guys. Let me get out of the screen share here, see what you have to say about that. What do we have? Let's see. George is sensitive, soulful. Yes. Mars and Uranus. Absolutely. George was great. He was my favorite. He was my favorite Beatle. All Mars Uranus combos are big red flag. Pretty intense, huh? The McCartney stuff is kind of mind blowing, right? And it's sort of the clues left behind with the transits. Yes. Pretty wild shit. I have Neptune in 11th too. That left eye, total. The one-eyed lobotomy again. Yes. Mars Uranus works with people you never get to know. That's what it feels like to me. George, they were doing that was a programmed sacrifice, reminiscent of Owen Wilson. I'm a Libra, keep a mental compendium of Libras. Interesting about the lungs, yes. This is wild. The total of that date is a 7. That's right. Absolutely. Yep. I didn't really believe the 33 that my BFF was killed my 33rd birthday. Freaky looking dude. This is way better than the Oscars. I know the Oscars are on, huh? I forgot about that. I just don't watch that shit anymore. So let's see. Ani says another parallel. Harris sends Donnie, and my dad had Ani and Joanie. Okay, interesting. What else do we have? That is creepy. Georgia not. No, he was not into it, man. He was not into it. Yoko's my favorite. Oh, there's Burke Naburu. Of course, Yoko's your favorite. Absolutely. Seems like a lot of rock kings were sacrifices. It's that way. Absolutely feels that way. Okay, so I got one more chart to go over. You guys want it? Let's do why would Paul want George gone? I believe you. Well, maybe you have to do royalties, perhaps. There's always that in the background, and maybe George knew, right? Maybe George knew a little too much about Paul, or fall, as it were. Okay, so let me do this other chart here. Oh, I just jumped right into this. Let's do screen share. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is Robert Kraft. Bob Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, who was arrested on the 22nd of February. And I believe the report came out at 10 a.m. Okay. And it was in Jupiter, Florida. In Jupiter, right? I mean, Jupiter, we're dealing with Jupiter and Sagittarius. And it was like, wow, here's Jupiter in full effect. So it wasn't just Bob Kraft, but there were some really wealthy people that were caught up in this Oasis. I think it's called the Oasis Baseball. Basically, it's like a tug and rub. It's like a rub and tug place, right? And I think a little bit more goes on. But the problem with this place, and there are people that say, "Oh, come on, he's just an old guy getting a hand job," right? The problem is that these women at this place, they were sexually trafficked, and they were like living there and sleeping in a little kitchen. They weren't allowed to go anywhere. They had to do this, you know, chop, 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 right? And then, you know, take care of business. And it wasn't just this one place. There were some others. And the state of Florida had been really focusing on this from a trafficking perspective. And of course, you know, these old dudes would go in there and, you know, they would have their little, you know, rub and a tug. And so Bob Kraft was caught up in this thing. Now, nobody's saying that Bob Kraft is involved in the trafficking of these women, but clearly they were trafficked. So if somebody says, oh, just, you know, just let them have sex, they're two consenting adults. No, they're not. And some of them might even be underage. You know, I don't know the full extent of this, but they're not consenting adults. These women are being kept there against their will. And, you know, so he got caught. 2 counts. They've got him on videotape, I've heard. That's got to be really not very interesting to watch. They got all the R. Kelly stuff on video too. People have to watch that stuff. They have to like go through notate. At 25 minutes and 37 seconds, Mr. Kelly urinated on the young woman. The urination lasted approximately 45 seconds, at which point, I mean, they go through this and they catalog all this shit, right? So they've got a catalog on. And apparently, like, you can see some of the craft stuff on the internet now. I don't want to see it. He's a toad. He's a toad of a man. But I had to kind of rectify his chart. So, again, I'm trying to sort of sort this out. I know a little bit about his life, okay? So one of the things that Bob Kraft did is he married into money. He married Myra. Myra was his wife, and Myra's father owned a company that did like cardboard, paper, you know, make boxes and shit like that, right? So he married him, and then eventually he leverages a buyout against the father. So he buys the company. He takes over. That was Bob Kraft's business. It was boxes, corrugated boxes and all that stuff, right? So I was looking at, how would that show up in this chart? That's one thing. That's one event, right? And his wife happened to be a Capricorn. And then his son is a Pisces. And then his big player is Tom Brady, who's a Leo. So I'm trying to take all this into account. Bill Belichick, longtime coach, is an Aries. Okay. So I'm like, all right, let me try to line this up. Like, oh, and by the way, very strong relationship with Israel. Big time. He's a big supporter. All right. So knowing all that, trying to put it all together, and he's not very tall, but he's always dressed like he doesn't have a whole lot out of place. Okay. So I came up with a Virgo ascendant, and I did have Neptune on the ascendant, which is, it's, you know, can be a little confusing, but he also has his true node there, right? But I have his sun right here on the midheaven. He's a public figure. We've got the connections with Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn in the 9th house, which would represent dealings with foreign countries, correct? Yes, so this could, some way, shape, or form, be connected to his relationship with Israel, 9th house. His wife's father was the guy that he worked for. So we have Cancer, which is the ruler, the mother in the home, correct? And that's up here in his 10th house. Venus is in Gemini, so I kind of took that into consideration. Here's the moon in the second house. The second house represents, production and, materials of the earth, like paper, wood going into paper. And then the moon here, sort of like, kind of following his instincts. He always followed his instincts with all of his deals. He's a very crafty guy, this Bob Kraft. But I also felt like that this could, even though it's the mother, could also represent home and the wife. And because I have Capricorn down here in the bottom of the chart with a little bit of Capricorn, she was born on the 27th of December, so it makes her early Capricorn, which would put her sun right around here in his 4th house, home, stable relationship, blah, 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 right? And then over here, Mars is in the 6th house, and his son is Jonathan, is probably going to take over the team. And that would be partnership. He's a March 6th, Pisces. So even though it's not quite partnership, it's close, and Mars is here. So that could be a working relationship with the sun. But also the 6th house represents distribution and, again, paper goods and all that stuff, right? So Mars 6th house kind of works. Tom Brady, who's a Leo, would be in his 11th house, which is the team. Okay, right there, the team. Be the captain of his team in the 11th house. So I thought that made. I mean, I'm just I'm putting these things together. This is what I'd call kind of a quick shot at rectifying a chart. And then Bill Belichick, who's been a longtime partner with him in the Patriots, is an Aries. So he'd be somewhere over here, probably between the 7th and the 8th house. So again, just lining all this stuff up. Okay, I'm going with that. That's going to be my, he likes fashion. So he's got a little bit of the dandy in him with that Libra just beneath this Virgo ascendant and his true node. And his true node happens to be where 28 Virgo. Isn't that great? It's conjunct my sun. Interesting. All right. So what happened? Again, what happened here? What happened here? Well, he got busted. Well, here's that Mars Uranus right there, 8th house. And then this tells me I could be onto something, right? This tells me that my rectification might be close because the 8th house is where the rub and the tug is going to happen. And it's going to happen behind, right? 8th house. Sex. It's a Scorpio house. You go in for a little scorpionic regeneration. Hold on a second. Let's get this back here. So I think I got kind of close, just based on what I'm seeing here. Oh, come on back. I hate that. Hold on. You hear? Here it is. All right. So that's happening. Well, look at what we have here. Now, this is independent of the ascendant, what I've come up with. Mars is on Neptune's on his Mars, right? So remember, Mars is the male principle. Hello. That's why it looks like this, round with that arrow coming up there, little arrow coming up there, right? That's the male principle. Here's Neptune. It's right on Mars. Yes, what is Neptune? It's behind the scenes. That's right. And those were working girls. Yes, indeed. 6th house. Is he going to do jail time? If he's convicted, this guy could do 30 days in jail. Think about that. And think about how powerful. They knew it was Bob Kraft. They knew it. And what's the other guy? What's his name? Havens and Childs? Isn't that interesting? Havens and Childs. Isn't it? Robert Kraft. Fans of Patriots. I love this shit. So fans of Patriots rivals travel to Florida Spa. So people hate the Patriots, okay? They hate them. They hate them. So they would go to this spa taking pictures, you know, like, you know, F you Patriots, Jets fans. Here's Giants fans. It's kind of funny in some ways, right? Oh, look, he's spotted at the pre-Oscars party. As he's got to like jump into his little Illuminati rituals, I guess. Okay, so there's some people here. Robert Kraft was spotted mingling with hot Asian women. There's that ninth house before the Super Bowl on the beach outside of his swanky Florida condo. So it wasn't just Robert Kraft, though. There were a bunch of other, like Havens, I believe. John, what's his name? Hold on. This is interesting. Let's see. What's his name? Childs arrested. Let's see. Childs arrested. I think his name is Childs. Arrested. Jupiter. I think his name is Childs. A very rich dude. This is interesting. Let's see what we come up with here. Come on. All right, here we go. Billionaire equity firm owner, John Childs. I mean, this guy's a billionaire, right? A billionaire. He got busted. He got popped. Kraft got popped. Okay, so let's see. The monsters are the men inside a thriving sex trafficking trade. Let's see. So there's Childs. He's on there. All right. There's another guy here. There's one other. So it's a Child. Okay. Oh, wow. Check this out. You ready? You ready for a little symbolic language? Okay. So we got havens, like a haven, right? And then we have Childs. Childs. This is interesting. Now, Martin County, that's Mars. Okay. Let's check this out. So there he is. A little Libra natty rising first house guy. So Childs, who's 77, interesting. He's the owner of, founder of Boston private equity firm. These guys know each other. They know each other. He's kind of creepy looking, isn't he? That guy's a little creepy looking. Okay, no, we don't want this. Okay, then there's. Okay, so that's John Childs. There he is, and then there's John Havens. You know what a John is? A John is a client of a hooker. So it's a haven for children, and there are Johns there, right? Isn't this? I mean, this is some very interesting symbolic language. There's John Havens. This guy is the former president of Citigroup. Okay, Citigroup. How about that? So we have the Child Havens, the Johns. Now we've got Kenneth Wessel, 75-year-old resident of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indian River County and John's Island Foundation. There's that name again, John. The John is a client. How about that? And there's Kenneth Wessel. Oh, he's a charming looking fellow, isn't he? My, oh my. Who else do we have here? We got Scott Taylor from your deputy with the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. So these are law enforcement dudes. Charles Thompson and Vito Gioia. He got busted. How about that? Kraft. He's a crafty fellow, this Bob Kraft. But these are rich motherfuckers, right? Come on, what are they doing there? What are they doing? I mean, they could, these guys are so freaking wealthy that they can afford escorts. I mean, he's already got one. Robert Kraft already has an escort that he's basically paying to be with him. They're going there for something else. They're not going there for a 30-year-old escort that they can pay. No, they're going there for something a little off the menu. That's what I'm thinking. In the child's haven, no haven. These guys are they are Johns. Let's put it that way. There he is, Mr. Slick. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him and the NFL. It's very interesting to see. Right. Let's go back to his chart again. Just to see what we got here. Right, there it is. 8th house, correct? 9th house. 9th house is people from other countries. Yep, people from other countries. Like China, places in Asia. It's that Mars right there. Bada bing, bada boom. Chiron in the 7th house. Right there, relationships. A little bit of wounding going on. And almost a lunar return, very, very close. What do we have here? Saturn, Pluto, Venus, squaring his moon. There's that Venus-Pluto conjunction. There it is, contractual, underworld, squaring his moon, right there. Yes, indeed. It's going to be interesting. Going to be very, but the thing is, it's like they knew who this guy was, right? These guys are rich and they're all getting busted. Well, why is that? You know, did they not pay their Freemasonic dues last month? And why are they getting busted? Is there, you know, I mean, again with the Epstein thing, that's coming back as well. What is happening here? It reminds me when Cosby, Cosby was a high-level Mason. And, even with all of his high-level, Masonic contacts, couldn't help him. This is what happens. This is what happens. Sometimes the logos intervenes. There's something going on here. Bob Kraft is being taught some kind of a lesson. It's what it feels like. It's what it feels like to me. True node is on his Chiron. Right there, transiting true node on Chiron. Cancer, women. Interesting, huh? Very interesting. All right, let me check in with you guys. See where we are with everything. If you're all still around here, you're still hanging in there. We've been going a bit. Let's see, what else do we have here? A lot of rock stars. Let's see, what do we have? What do we have? 104 people. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, covering craft. Good old Bobby. CEO Citibank, former CEO for one. Oh, well. We're talking about Jim Morrison's dad. Off topic for a sec, chat. You think Chris Cornell, interesting, Yoko. Reports she had a sex with Hillary Clinton, 89. Let's see what else. You guys are jamming in the chat room tonight. Look at that. Bob Kraft just got charged for sex trafficking. Golden showers wasn't enough of a red flag. Chester and Chris were definitely linked. You guys are jamming tonight. I love it. A lot of good stuff going on in the chat room. Let's see. Rick Pitino got busted. That's right. He looks like a drooler. That looks so creepy, right? Totally creepy. Who's outing these guys? Exactly. Mark says adrenochrome. Let's see what else. Ennis Cosby was killed. That's right. I have Mars at 17 and Neptune is coming for it. Just stay away from the massage parlors, Jennifer. You'll be fine. Yes, indeed. Let's see. Yes, it was in Philadelphia, right? Pennsylvania. Yep. Thoughts on Marianne Williamson? I don't know. I don't know about Marianne Williamson. I think Marianne Williamson would get eaten alive on the global stage. No, you'll be okay, Jennifer. You'll be okay. But you know, if somebody's supposed to, I think Trump is going to win the next election. By the way, that's my that's what I say. I think Trump's going to win, but who knows? You know, if the powers that be think Marianne Williamson is supposed to be the next president, all of a sudden we'll hear about how great she is, right? I don't think Hillary Clinton's going to run. By the way, I don't think she's going to run for president. Cato, my mom worked in Hollywood. She knew about Cosmo, told me about when I was a kid. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't, unless the powers that be want her to win, but I think Trump will be the next president. I think they had their shot, and I'm going to be talking more about this week. I think that Mueller's wrapping up. It's over, and everything that they tried to do to Trump has failed, and he's moving forward, and it's the dawn of a new day, and I'm not sure it's great. Oh, not about winning. I don't think Bernie's going to be in it. I think I could be completely wrong, but I think the nomination is going to be Joe Biden and Amy Klobuchar. Is that how you say her name? That's what I think. Not about winning. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Marianne Williamson. You know why I'm not a fan of Marianne Williamson? Because there was all this shit going on for a long time. A long time. And all these so-called spiritual gurus didn't do jack about, the real spiritual crisis and the spiritual malaise. Do I think she's light or dark? She's probably both. She grew up in Houston. She was a wealthy little girl, spoiled little girl from River Oaks in Houston. I know people that know her. She's from Houston. And, I guess, I don't know. I've got really no comment except for the fact that not Hillary Clinton, but Tony Robbins and Marianne Williamson and Deepak Chopra and all these self-help gurus, to some extent, Wayne Dyer, right? We had all this crap going on for a long time, and none of them ever really addressed it. It was all about feel good. It was all about it didn't get to the heart of any of what we're now experiencing. And at some point, I was not thrilled with these people because they made a ton of money, I think, selling people a lot of hope and a lot of hype. Maybe people got something out of it, maybe there was some value in it. And I'm not saying that there might not have been some value, but at the end of the day, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with like the cesspool that's rising to the surface. And I think they needed to have a little bit more of that along with their message. There you go. That was my take on them, right? That was my take. Just wondered, I'm with you, just wondered your thoughts. There we go. Chris and Steve say Bernie is inadvertently responsible for so many people waking up when he folded and lied for HRC. Bernie has given us Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. By the way, there's some real issues with her. Real issues. First of all, she doesn't really even have a house in the Bronx. It's some kind of condo that's in her father's name. Okay. She doesn't have an office so her constituents can come to see her. So who is she? Who really is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I think she's a cutout. That's what I think. Bernie was threatened. They beat him up. They boxed his ass off. They beat him up just before the convention. He got to keep all that money. He got to keep all that campaign money. Right? Absolutely. Bernie's worth millions. He's got 3 houses. He's the epitome of the ruling class within a socialist system. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go. Yes, it's time. It's late. I've gone, let's see, 10 o'clock. Started at what, 7:30? Shit, 2.5 hours a night. Long time. Hey, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. I'm going to try to be here tomorrow for 15 minutes. I'm going to be down videotaping some of my comrades in the fight against fluoride in Fredericksburg. Oh, Rami Malek just won the Oscar. Okay, congratulations. Joseph Kony, 2020. That's funny. But I'll be back tomorrow. At what time? Remains to be seen. But be in the morning. And then Tuesday, I promise. Tuesday, it's happening on robertphoenix.com. Just come over to robertphoenix.com. Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. That'll be the first broadcast of 15 Minutes of Flame from my website. I promise you it will happen then, and it will continue to happen from that point forward. Okay? With that, I bid you all a very fine evening. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Bless you. And, have a great week. Bye for now.